Welcome back. Deepa Robbins here from DeeZinesByD, and today I have another Make the Cards Challenge post for you. So this week for the Make the Cards Challenge, we have a sketch challenge, and this is actually a really nice one. And I personally like sketch challenges because it takes a lot of the thinking out of the design for you. So the design's pretty much laid out for you, and it's really up to you to interpret that design and create something based on it. So you will see the design post. I'm going to post that in a second or show that in a second. And it actually is a bit different from my card. I've taken the design and kind of turned it on its side and made it a landscape. And I also kind of moved the sentiment over a bit and added a few other things that I thought worked for this card. So as you can see, the actual sketch is a portrait sized card and the sentiment is right under that little strip of squares. Now, like I said, I changed it just a little bit and made it work for me. You could do whatever you want to it. Now, I'm going to be featuring the Pink Fresh Studio Folk Garden 2 set, the actual suite. I'll be using the foil plate, the dies, and the layering stencils. So the first thing that I'm going to do is do some foiling. And in this video, I do want to share some tips and tricks for foiling on different colored cardstocks. Now, the first piece of cardstock I'm going to foil is my white, and I'll be using some Spellbinders teal foil for this with the Folk Garden 2 plate. Now, the main thing that I want to note is that my white cardstock is actually the Hammermill Smooth cardstock, so that tends to foil really well. In terms of colored cardstock, when you're choosing a colored cardstock, you want to choose something that's not too textured. So make sure you get something as smooth as possible, and I would recommend like a thicker cardstock because this just makes it more sturdy and easier to get that foiling done on it. Not to mention, you also want to adjust your shims based on the thickness of your cardstock as well. Furthermore, a few other tips I have are listed on my blog, but for the most part, what you want to do is make sure to heat up your platform really well. Heat it up maybe 5 minutes more. And then also, once you've set your timer, let it go for a couple minutes more after it's ready to go. When you're putting it through your die cutting machine, make sure that you roll it through slowly. And I personally don't like going back and forth. I only go one way because sometimes when you go backwards, the plate slips and then you get a double impression, and you don't really want that. And then the other tip that I have that is really a lifesaver for me is to use a Tombow Mono eraser or the Couture Creation Detailer tool. Erase any overfoiling. I don't like foiling and throwing stuff away, so these items, the erasers, come in handy to get rid of any extra foiling. So always try that before you maybe ditch what you've done or maybe use it for something else. So moving forward, I decided to add some ink to that white foil background, and I did this with some Altenew Aqualicious Pink Pearl and some Puffy Heart ink. I didn't use all of the layering stencils, I just want to point that out. I think I used about 5 of them and there's 6, but I mean, it's really up to you how you want to do this. You could actually leave this blank or maybe just do it monotone, do it all gray if you wanted to. So the next thing I'm going to do is kind of cut out those the 3 squares that are part of the sketch. And I have this small square die that I'm using for it. Everybody has like a set of square dies, rectangles, whatever it is, you could use that. I mean, like I said, in the sketch we have squares. You could use circles, you could use hearts, you could use anything you wanted just to make it more unique to what you're doing. Now, I cut out those 3 squares, but I still have the rest of that image. So I actually took the coordinating die and I cut out all of those little folk garden images. And keep that aside because we will use some of them on the front and some of them on the inside of the card. So moving forward, I'm going to be using the Tim Holtz Ideology Cardstock here. This is Metallic Jewels. And I found this purpley pink color that works well with this card. Now, I'm just going to keep that to the side for when it's time to put it together, but I just wanted to show you this little box here. And I have all of these sentiments that I've kind of foiled. I've got like the normal sentiments from Pink Fresh, the holiday sentiments, and some of the brush script sentiments. And so all I did was I kind of went to my tin and pulled out a sentiment that worked for me. I didn't actually do any foiling for this in terms of sentiments. So I am using the thank you sentiment that was foiled in silver foil, using the Pink Fresh Studio sentiments plate and die. Now, I wanted to back those 3 squares on some vellum, so that's exactly what I did. And I do this by kind of, as you see, I just totally haphazardly, like put them, not haphazardly, I put them in a nice straight line and made sure that they were spaced apart nicely. And then all I had to do here was kind of cut some straight lines around it to get nice little borders. They're about 1/8 of an inch, maybe a little bigger around there. Furthermore, I went and I cut my teal panel down to size. Now, I made my card base, which is an A2 size top folding card base out of white cardstock. And I decided that before I put together the front, I'm going to put together the inside. Now, I haven't actually stamped a sentiment on this. I kind of try to leave it blank if it's not for something in particular. And then when it does come time to using it, I'll stamp something that's appropriate for the occasion. So what I did was I popped up one of those little pieces with some foam squares, and for the other two I glued them right down to the cardstock. You don't have to pop them up. It does make it a bit bulkier, so I would use this card as a hand-given card, maybe rather than something that I'm going to put through the mail, because it will have a bit of dimension there. So once I'm done kind of putting together the inside, I'll go ahead and put together the front just like the sketch. And these are actually some strips that I created. They're foam strips, and I made them with some double-sided adhesive. What you have to do is put the double-sided adhesive on either side of the foam, and then you kind of cut them to size to use them. I had only put it on one side, so you can see that I use glue on the other side, but it's really up to you what you want to do. So now I'm using the Barely Arts glue to put these squares down, and I like using liquid glue for this because it helps give me some time to kind of space them out nicely. Then I'll kind of put my sentiment down and figure out where I'm going to put all of these other little folk garden elements behind it, just to create a bit more interest on the front of the card and tie in those 3 little squares to the rest of the design. So I've added some more foam to that thank you sentiment, and I'll adhere that, and then I'll just add a few more of the folk garden pieces. And this is just making a nice flowy folk garden card. I really like how this turned out. I like that I have that silver foiling on the teal. It really stands out, the silver on the teal, so I thought that worked well. Here are all of these little strips. I'm showing you I've cut some of them big, some of them small, and they really come in handy, especially for sentiments like the thank you. Like you can see that arm of the Y is a little thin, so I use my thinner strips for that, and the other pieces I'll use thicker strips. So this is like a really nice makeshift way of making your own foam squares or foam strips to use. Now I have this little butterfly sitting around. It's an acetate butterfly, and I use the Pink Fresh Studio Small Butterflies foil plate and die for that. It was used on a previous project and just happened to be lying there, so I thought I'd use it on here as well. And because it has AB colored aura foil, so basically it's a gold foil that has like an AB color to it. So AB stands for Aurora Borealis, so it shines all of the colors of the rainbow. So it just goes nicely with the rest of the card, even though the rest of the card is silver. So what I did to finish this off was I embellished it with some of these Pink Fresh Studio Glacier jewels. These ones are really nice because, again, they have that AB feel to it, so it ties in that little butterfly. And it picks up the colors of the rest of the card, even though the main color of the jewel is white. Now I added a couple little tiny jewels to those 3 squares, and for this I used some really small nail art jewels, and these jewels are really, like, you can get them anywhere. I tend to get them off of Amazon most of the time. All of the products that I use will be linked in my in my blog, which is in the description of this video. So go ahead and click there to find them. And that's my final card for today. So I hope you've been inspired to use this sketch to create a card of your own, and go ahead and link it up to the Make the Cards Challenge blog, and you could be the winner for the week. I hope that you guys have gotten something out of the video. Maybe some of those foiling tips come in handy for you. I know I kind of rushed through them a bit, so go ahead and look at my blog. As I've said, I've got them all listed there, and keep in mind that you can use some of those tips or all of them if you wanted to. Not all of them are going to apply to everybody. It all depends on your supplies, your die cutting machine, your glimmer foil machine. All of those things are going to come into play. So I really hope that you've been inspired here. Go ahead and check out the other designers' work and link up your projects. And I hope to see you again next time. Have a great day, guys. Bye.